Okay, so the date is July 16th, 1945, 5:29 in the morning. And we are deep, deep in the heart of the Jornada de Muerto Desert in New Mexico.
The Journey of the Dead Man. I mean, you couldn't make that name up. It's almost too perfect, isn't it?
It's cruelly perfect.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere, it matches the name. It's pitch black, and there's this just terrifying, almost biblical thunderstorm raging across the desert. It's just amplifying the fear that's already there.
Right.
And inside a concrete control bunker, which is sort of dug into the earth to protect everyone if something goes catastrophically wrong, stands Dr. J. Robert Oppenheimer.
And he's not the confident figure we see in photos.
Not at all. He's a physical wreck.
Right.
I mean, he's painfully thin, maybe weighs 115 pounds, just ground down by stress and, constant chain smoking.
Mm-hmm.
He's wearing that famous hat, the pork pie hat, but he's literally clinging to a wooden post inside the bunker just to keep himself steady. He's shaking, visibly, violently shaking.
The sheer weight of the moment. I mean, he's facing this ultimate question.
The ultimate question. He's waiting for the answer to something that's almost impossible to comprehend. Is the device that he built about to work, ending the war?
Well,
or is this terrifyingly complex thing he's created about to trigger a chain reaction, ignite all the nitrogen in the Earth's atmosphere, and just vaporize the planet?
it's the point of no return. The exact second the science project ends, and I guess the existential clock for all of us starts ticking.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we aren't really talking about a scientific hero or, not just the father of the atomic bomb. We are diving into the life of a destroyer. J. Robert Oppenheimer was the man who led the team, he built the weapon, and he spent every day for the rest of his life haunted by what he'd unleashed.
And that iconic image we all know, the pipe, the intense eyes, that charisma, our sources show that all of that was, well, it was built on a foundation of really profound psychological instability. He's a much darker, much more conflicted figure than his public image suggests.
He's basically a ghost story in the making. And our mission today is to peel back those polished layers of Oppie, the persona, to get into the mind underneath. We want to understand the man who, stole fire from the gods and then had to watch the world catch fire because of it.
It's a huge story.
It's a massive story. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start right there with the flash. The Trinity test. When that gadget, as they called it, finally went off, it wasn't just a big bang. It wasn't like any explosion anyone had ever seen.
Yeah.
According to all the witnesses out there in the desert, it defied perception.
Yeah, I've read that they struggled to even find words for the light.
They really did.
Yeah.
Because the accounts don't focus on how bright it was, not at first. They focus on how new it was. They said the initial flash wasn't just light, it was a new color. A color that had never existed before.
A new color.
A new color. It started as this searing, almost supernatural purple. And that purple instantly shifted into this sickly, vibrant green. And then, only then, did it finally settle into a white light, so blinding, so painful and consuming that everyone said it was like exponentially brighter than the noon sun.
Wow.
This is a physical force you could see. I mean, the power was obvious right away. The shockwave knocked people off their feet miles from the tower. The heat, the thermal radiation was so intense it melted the asphalt roads leading to the site, just turned them into black goo. And most famously, the sand at the epicenter was changed. It was fused into this strange, glassy, green, radioactive material we now call trinitite.
And Oppenheimer, in the bunker, what was his reaction?
Silence. In that gap between the flash and the sound wave hitting them, which must have felt like an eternity, there's just this profound, paralyzing silence. And in that silence, this line, this very specific line, flashes through his mind. He later confirmed it. It was from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. And that quote, it really is the central conflict of the entire man, isn't it? We have to ask, was he confessing something? Was he genuinely terrified of what he'd unleashed?
Or was he bragging?
Exactly. Or was this the ultimate act of intellectual vanity, using this profound ancient text to frame himself as, the most important actor in human history?
To really get at that question, confession versus bragging, you have to go back. You have to understand who he was before all this.
You absolutely do. To understand the destroyer, you have to meet the fragile, awkward little boy. J. Robert Oppenheimer was born into just immense wealth. Upper West Side, Manhattan. His father was a very successful German immigrant, made a fortune importing textiles.
So a privileged upbringing.
Oh, beyond privilege. Think of the environment. They had servants, he went to the best private schools, and it was real cultural wealth. Not just money. They had original Van Gogh and Cezanne paintings just hanging on the walls.
That's a different world.
It is. But Robert, as they called him then, was so sheltered. He was never allowed to just be a boy, to get into scraps or play sports. He was always indoors, collecting rocks, reading advanced literature. I mean, get this, by the age of 9, he was writing letters to established geologists in New York about his rock collection.
That kind of intensity without the normal social stuff, it often makes kids a target.
A huge target. He became this intellectual powerhouse, but, a social and physical liability. At summer camp, his isolation just made him a magnet for bullies. And not just regular bullying, but really vicious stuff.
The ice house story.
The ice house story, it's just horrific. A group of older boys trapped him in an ice house overnight, naked. And then, as a final humiliation, they painted his entire body green.
My God, that kind of thing. It muddles a kid up. It just confirms every fear they have about being different and forces them to retreat completely inside their own head.
That's exactly what he did. He retreated into the worlds of abstraction, of physics, where he could control everything. He flew through Harvard, graduated in 3 years, no surprise there. But the first real crisis, the moment the instability really boiled over, was when he went to England, to the Cavendish Laboratory at Cambridge.
Right.
This is where the fragile genius almost became a murderer.
This is where his theoretical mind just collided with the practical world, isn't it?
It collided and shattered. He was a man of math, of ideas. He did not have the physical dexterity for experimental lab work. He was clumsy. He kept breaking the sensitive equipment.
Well, yeah.
And for someone who had only ever known effortless intellectual success, this was a deep, deep humiliation.
And his advisor there, Patrick Blackett, he wasn't exactly a gentle mentor.
To put it mildly, Blackett was famously harsh, demanding. He was constantly on Oppenheimer's case, berating him for his incompetence in the lab. And that humiliation, combined with a crippling depression he was already dealing with, it led to a complete mental breakdown.
And out of that desperation comes the poisoned apple.
The poisoned apple. And it's not a myth. It is absolutely verified in the sources. In a moment of just pure psychological rage and resentment, Oppenheimer took an apple, he injected it with poisonous chemicals from the lab. Sources say it was probably cyanide or something similar, and he left it on Patrick Blackett's desk.
He was trying to kill him. He actually crossed that line.
Across the line, he acted on the impulse. And it was pure luck that Blackett didn't eat the apple. But when the university found out what happened, Oppenheimer's future was, hanging by a thread.
So how did he get out of it?
Money and influence. His father rushed over from New York and essentially bribed the university administration to prevent them from pressing criminal charges and expelling him.
Wow.
He got away with it, but they put him on probation and forced him into psychiatric treatment. And the psychiatrist who saw him gave him a diagnosis of dementia precox.
Which was the old term for schizophrenia.
Exactly. Now, most historians think that was a misdiagnosis, but the fact that he got such a severe label tells you just how unstable he appeared, how real that murderous impulse was, and his priority was always physics. He even said it himself once in a letter, "I need physics more than friends."
So that's the real mystery then. How does this neurotic, deeply unstable, almost homicidal young man transform himself into the charismatic, smooth leader who could run the Manhattan Project?
He built him. He engineered a new person. After Cambridge, he realized that Robert the awkward boy was a liability. He was dangerous. So with the same focus he'd apply to a physics problem, he constructed a persona. He created Oppie.
It was a mask.
It was a total mask,
Yeah.
a piece of social engineering to hide that fractured core. And every single detail of Oppie was intentional. The expensive, perfectly tailored suits gave him an air of authority and control.
And the pipe. The
Yeah.
famous pipe.
The pipe was a masterstroke. It wasn't just a habit, it was a tool. It gave his clumsy, nervous hands something to do, something deliberate, something ritualistic. It kept him from fidgeting and betraying the anxiety that was just humming underneath the surface.
So all that legendary charm, it wasn't natural, it was rehearsed.
It was completely rehearsed. He taught himself what he called the social arts. He literally learned the exact perfect technique for mixing a martini so he would never look awkward or out of place in any social setting. The persona of Oppie, this smooth, brilliant, cultured man, that's what the world saw. And crucially, that's the mask that seduced the U.S. government. But Robert, the boy from the ice house, was always there, right underneath. So as we get into the 1930s, this new creation, Oppie, is an absolute rock star at the University of California, Berkeley. He's a revolutionary. I mean, he basically single-handedly brings quantum mechanics from Europe to America.
Yeah.
He makes Berkeley the center of the physics universe.
And he created this intense environment around him, almost like a cult.
It was a cult of personality, absolutely. His graduate students didn't just study his work, they became apostles of his style. They started copying his mannerisms, his way of walking, his speech patterns, even the brand of cigarettes he smoked. It was known as the object cult.
Which must have been exactly what he needed. Devotion, but at a safe intellectual distance.
Perfectly put. He got all the admiration he craved without any of the messy, unpredictable intimacy of real friendship, which, he had already proved he couldn't handle. But it's during this time at Berkeley that his interests start to drift away from just physics.
Right, into politics, into revolution.
Yes, he gets deeply invested in what's happening in the world, the Spanish Civil War, the rise of fascism in Germany, and this is when he meets Jean Tatlock.
And she was a huge figure in his life.
Pivotal, just absolute pivotal. She was brilliant, a psychiatrist, but also very volatile, very intense. And she was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party.
And while Oppenheimer never officially joined the party,
He was what they called a fellow traveler. He was deeply involved. He gave a lot of money to left-wing causes, especially those related to the Spanish Civil War. He hosted communist meetings at his house. He was definitely in that orbit.
and his connection to Tatlock wasn't just political. Sources are pretty clear she was the love of his life.
Oh, without a doubt. Even after he married his wife, Kitty, he remained deeply obsessed with Jean. She represented this passionate, messy human side of life that physics couldn't give him. But she was also struggling. Terribly. She suffered from severe, crippling depression.
And then the bomb project comes along and forces his hand.
Completely. When he gets tapped for the Manhattan Project, the security people demand he cut off all contact with any known communists or sympathizers. He had to abruptly, totally sever ties with Jean Tatlock.
Which must have been devastating for her.
It was. And just a few years later, while he's deep in the New Mexico desert building the bomb, she tragically commits suicide. The personal cost of this project for him was already astronomical, long before the bomb was even built.
And he had to bury that grief and move on to this next phase, which involved one of the strangest partnerships in history.
General Leslie Groves, the ultimate odd couple.
I mean, they were complete opposites.
Polar opposites. Groves was this big, loud, deeply conservative Army engineer. He was obsessed with security, with schedules, with efficiency. He had, let's say, zero patience for the artistic temperament of scientists.
So when he looks at Oppenheimer's file, it's full of communist connections, this intense affair, the psychiatric history. Why on earth does he pick him? He's the biggest security risk imaginable with zero management experience.
Because Groves was an incredible judge of character, or at least an incredible judge of ambition. He saw past all the red flags on the file, and he saw one thing in Oppenheimer: a burning ambition.
An ambition that would override everything else.
Everything. Groves knew that Oppie wanted the glory of this project so badly that he would do anything to make it succeed. He would cut off his friends, he would betray his political past, he would sacrifice his entire personal life to get to that finish line. He was a safe bet because his ambition made him controllable.
And Groves did respect his mind, didn't he?
He did. He had this great quote about him. He said, "He's a genius. He can talk to you about anything you bring up." Well, not sports. And that was key. That ability to speak the language of chemists, of metallurgists, of theoretical physicists, it made him the perfect person to be the hub of this massive, sprawling project.
So once Groves makes the choice, Oppenheimer gets to pick the location.
And he picks a place that combines his two great loves: physics in desert country, the Los Alamos Mesa in New Mexico. He literally builds a secret city from scratch on top of this remote plateau.
A prison for geniuses, as some people called it.
That's a great description. He gathers the most incredible collection of scientific minds ever assembled in one place. Nobel laureates like Enrico Fermi, brilliant minds like Hans Bethe, and the very ambitious, very difficult Edward Teller. And he locks them all away behind barbed wire and military checkpoints.
And what was it like living there, this weird, isolated, high-pressure community?
It was bizarre. Their mail was all censored. Every phone call was monitored by military intelligence. They were given fake names. These are people used to academic freedom, to open debate, and suddenly they're in this pressure cooker where they can't speak freely, all while working on a weapon that could destroy civilization.
And Oppenheimer's role changes. He's not just a scientist anymore.
No, he becomes the conductor of this chaotic orchestra. He has to manage these huge egos. He has to settle bitter scientific disputes like the constant arguments between Teller and Bethe. He has to be the bridge between the scientists and the military. He essentially becomes the father figure for this strange, temporary city of geniuses.
And it's in this intense, focused environment that this idea of the technically sweet solution really takes hold.
Yes, and this is such a critical concept to understand. Technically sweet is the ultimate intellectual trap.
So break that down. What does it mean?
It means that the scientific problem itself, in this case, figuring out nuclear fission or designing the implosion mechanism for the plutonium core, is so elegant, so complex, so intellectually beautiful and satisfying to solve, that solving it becomes the most important thing. The science becomes its own moral justification.
So you defer the ethics.
You completely defer the ethics. It allows you to say, look, our job is just to see if this is possible. We have to solve the puzzle.
Yeah.
And then only after we've solved it will we worry about what should be done with it. It's a way of compartmentalizing.
That's the trap, isn't it? The seduction of the problem itself.
It's the trap that got all of them, but especially Oppenheimer. He fell completely in love with the gadget, with the physics, the engineering, the pure challenge of it. He became obsessed. And while he was lost in that beautiful, sweet science, the entire world, the entire justification for the project changed under his feet.
Because the original enemy was Germany.
The original enemy was Hitler. The entire project was a race to build a bomb before the Nazis could. But Germany surrendered. In May of 1945, the war in Europe was over.
And the bomb wasn't ready yet.
The bomb was not ready. So the primary moral and military reason for this weapon's existence, it just evaporated 2 months before they even tested it.
But the project didn't stop.
The machine was too big to stop. $2 billion had been spent. The military, especially Groves, was absolutely determined to use this new superweapon. They had it, and they were going to demonstrate it to the world. And Oppenheimer? He didn't protest. He didn't use this moment to call for a pause.
He pivoted.
He pivoted instantly. He became an active participant in the next phase. He sat on the target committee, helping the military decide which Japanese cities would be the most effective places to drop the bomb. He went from creator to consultant on its deployment. The technically sweet problem had to be seen through to its conclusion.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Right. So August 6th, 1945, the little boy bomb is successfully detonated over Hiroshima.
And the immediate reaction at Los Alamos, it wasn't somber, was it?
It was the exact opposite of somber. It was terrifyingly joyous. It was a victory party. When the official confirmation came through, the whole place just erupted. They all gathered in the auditorium. People were cheering, popping champagne bottles, celebrating like they had just won the World Series.
And Oppenheimer was right there with them.
He was leading the celebration. He ran up onto the stage. He didn't give some deep philosophical speech. He clasped his hands together and he raised them over his head like a triumphant boxer, just soaking in the applause.
That image is so chilling. The creators celebrating the technical success, in that moment, completely divorced from the human cost.
Completely divorced.
Yeah.
He was riding the ultimate high of achievement. He even reportedly told the crowd that his only regret
Yeah.
was that they hadn't finished the bomb in time to use it on the Germans.
Wow.
The focus was entirely on the what, not the who. It was about what they had accomplished as scientists and engineers.
So when did that euphoria break? When did the reality of what they'd done finally hit them?
It hit them like a freight train, and it hit them fast. As soon as the detailed reports started coming back from Japan, that's when the mood didn't just shift, it shattered.
The photos, the accounts from the ground.
Yes, they started to understand they hadn't just made a bigger explosion, they had unleashed something truly new and monstrous. They read about the slow, agonizing deaths from radiation sickness, something many of them had only theorized about. They saw photos of the patterns of kimonos burned directly onto the skin of victims. They learned about the shadows of people that were permanently vaporized onto the pavement.
They finally understood they'd opened Pandora's box.
And they couldn't close it. The scientific abstraction was gone, replaced by this gruesome reality. The swagger just vanished from Los Alamos. People were physically sick. Oppenheimer himself, he was transformed. People who saw him said he looked like a ghost, like a zombie. The adrenaline was gone, and in its place was this bottomless, paralyzing guilt.
He saw the future, the arms race.
He saw it instantly. He knew that what he had built guaranteed a high-stakes nuclear arms race with the Soviet Union. The man who thought he was building a weapon to end all wars suddenly realized he might have just doomed the world.
Which leads him straight to the White House, to that brutal meeting with President Truman.
Yes, in October of 1945, Oppenheimer is just consumed by this guilt, and he gets a meeting in the Oval Office. He's a wreck. He's wringing his hands. He can't sit still. And he looks at President Truman, the man who actually gave the order, and he says it, he confesses, "Mr. President, I feel I have blood on my hands."
He's trying to share the burden to get some kind of absolution, maybe.
Or transfer it. And Truman, the plain-speaking politician from Missouri, He had absolutely no time for it.
None.
Zero. Truman's reaction was just immediate and brutal. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out a clean white handkerchief, holds it out to Oppenheimer, and says, "Well, here, would you like to wipe them?"
Oof, just a complete shutdown.
A total dismissal of Oppenheimer's moral crisis. After Oppenheimer left, Truman told an aide that he never wanted to see that son of a bitch in his office again. He later called him a crybaby scientist.
And that meeting perfectly captures the huge gap between the scientist who creates the thing and the politician who uses it.
It's the moment the scientist realized he wasn't God, he was just the mechanic. Oppenheimer thought that because he unlocked the secret of the atom, his moral authority should guide its use. He saw himself as Prometheus.
But Truman saw him as the guy who built the tool.
Exactly. Truman, the president, the one who had to make the decision and answer to the public, saw him as the brilliant engineer who delivered the weapon. The president owned the decision, and he didn't need the mechanic coming in afterward wringing his hands about it.
So after that rejection, Oppenheimer tries to pivot again. He tries to become the conscience of America on this issue.
He tries desperately. He starts lobbying nonstop for international control of nuclear energy. He argues that the U.S. should give its atomic secrets to the United Nations to prevent the arms race he knew was coming.
Which, in the emerging climate of the Cold War, must have sounded like treason to some people.
It sounded exactly like treason to the hawks in Washington. The idea of sharing America's ultimate military advantage with the world, and by extension the Soviets, was just unthinkable.
And this new role as the nation's conscience puts him on a collision course with the next big project, the hydrogen bomb.
The super. This was the brainchild of his old colleague and rival, Edward Teller. It was a fusion bomb, not a fission bomb, 1,000 times more powerful than the one dropped on Hiroshima. A whole different scale of destruction.
And Oppenheimer was dead set against it.
Vehemently against it. He was the chair of the advisory committee, and he argued that the H-bomb had no conceivable military purpose. He said it was a weapon only for genocide. He saw that it was a path to unlimited world-ending power, and he tried to stop it.
He was standing directly in the way of the military-industrial complex.
He was. And by doing that, he was making some very, very powerful enemies. He made himself a problem that, in their eyes, needed to be removed.
So now we're in 1954. It's the absolute peak of the Red Scare, of McCarthyism, and Oppenheimer is called to a security hearing.
And this wasn't a real hearing, was it? It was a show trial. It was a total kangaroo court. It was orchestrated from behind the scenes by his enemies, especially a man named Lewis Strauss, a powerful political figure who had this deep personal grudge against Oppenheimer. The goal wasn't to find the truth. The goal was to strip him of his security clearance.
To silence him, to push him out of the corridors of power for good.
Precisely. And they used every dirty trick in the book. They illegally wiretapped his phones. They bugged his office. They dredged up every single compromising detail from his entire life, all the things that the Oppie persona was designed to hide.
And they went after his personal life, the Jean Tatlock affair, in a really brutal way.
It was pure humiliation. They read intimate details of his relationship with Jean, a known communist, into the official record, decades after the fact. They twisted all of his old political donations from the 30s to paint this picture of him as either a dangerous liability or, even worse, an actual Soviet spy.
But the real knife in the back came from one of his own, from another scientist.
From Edward Teller, the father of the H-bomb that Oppenheimer tried to stop. Teller's testimony was just a masterpiece of polite, vicious assassination.
He didn't accuse him of treason outright, did he?
No, that's what was so clever and so devastating. Teller said that he didn't necessarily question Oppenheimer's loyalty, but, and this is the killer line, he would feel safer if the vital interests of this country were in hands which I understood better.
It's the ultimate insider's betrayal, just casting enough doubt.
It was the fatal blow. It used the language of personal feeling and security to brand him as fundamentally untrustworthy, an unpredictable element that the government could no longer risk having around.
And the outcome was predetermined. They stripped him of his clearance.
Instantly. He was exiled overnight. The man who'd been the face of American science was now a pariah, and it broke him. Friends said he aged 20 years in that month. The system he built the ultimate weapon for had turned on him and annihilated him.
And he just retreated after that.
Completely. He went to the U.S. Virgin Islands. He spent his final years sailing, drinking too much, and just staring at the ocean. The destroyer had been destroyed.
It's just such a tragic arc, but looking at it now, it feels like more than just a history lesson. It feels like a direct warning for right now.
It is the ultimate warning. I mean, Oppenheimer's story isn't a historical artifact. We are collectively living through the exact same psychological drama here in 2025.
You're talking about artificial general intelligence, AGI.
AGI, the parallel is, it's uncanny. The rhetoric is identical. You listen to the CEOs and the lead researchers at the big AI labs today, and they're using Oppenheimer's exact same justification.
We have to build it, or our rivals will.
Exactly. We have to build it, or China will get there first. They use the same national security competition-based argument to rationalize building something they admit could be incredibly dangerous.
And the technically sweet idea is everywhere.
It's everywhere. The problem of creating intelligence is so fascinating. The code is so elegant. The challenge is so compelling. They have to solve it. They're obsessed with building it, even as they themselves are the ones signing open letters warning that it could lead to human extinction.
So that's the Oppenheimer paradox right there.
That is the paradox in its purest form. To be terrified of what you're building, but to be completely unable to stop yourself from building it. The momentum, the financial, the intellectual, the nationalistic momentum is just too strong.
And Oppenheimer's final lesson is that you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
You can't. Once the physics is known, it can't be unknown. And once the code that unlocks general intelligence is written, it can't be unwritten. It will be copied. It will be stolen. It will be weaponized. The knowledge will get out.
So his ultimate warning isn't about the technology itself. It's about not trusting the creators.
It's about not trusting the creators to control their creation, because they are the most susceptible to its seduction. They are blinded by the beauty and the sweetness of the science, just like he was blinded by that flash of purple and green and white in the desert.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it feels like we are all standing at our own Trinity test site right now, doesn't it? Watching the countdown on AGI and just waiting to see what color the flash will be this time.
That's the chilling reality of his legacy. We've built the power of gods, but we still have the same flawed, fragile, competitive psychology that he did.
That was an incredibly intense deep dive. The tragedy of Oppenheimer is so profound because his fall feels almost inevitable once the creation started.
It is an enduring and a heavy legacy. J. Robert Oppenheimer died of throat cancer in 1967. His ashes were scattered in the ocean. But that fire that he stole, the one that ultimately consumed him, it's still burning. It's burning in every nuclear silo and in every AI server farm on the planet, reminding us of the cost.
We really encourage you to keep exploring this story. The relationship between genius, ambition, and risk has never been more relevant.
Thank you for joining us. And as you see these new, powerful technologies emerging all around you, just remember this one final thought. Just because you can build it doesn't mean you should.